not a client of the Hope Clinic, but she did receive help from a life-affirming pregnancy center in Fort Wayne. And while every story is unique, as is Sarah's, there's many pieces of her story that our clients have in common with her. Sarah is an Adams County native. She's the daughter of Chris and Shelley Meyer, and we're blessed to have her in our community. She and her husband Paul are loving parents to their sons Preston and Rudy. I will tell you there are professional speakers from all around the country who travel to speak at banquets like this. But it takes a special kind of courage to talk about a very personal journey in front of people from your very own community. And I am just truly honored by Sarah's courage in sharing with us this evening. And please give a warm, warm welcome to Sarah Mihm.
I definitely want to say thank you, Jim, for this opportunity. He is such an inspiration in our town, and it has been an honor working with you on this project. I'm sure some people thought my journey of life was a train wreck. During certain moments, I actually believed what people would say about me. Sometimes I felt like I was alone, I wasn't making the best choices, and some of those bad choices were the guys that I went after. I didn't believe I deserved a nice guy. I dated guys who were emotionally abusive starting at the age of 15 and guys who were into drugs. My late teenage years to early adult years, I experimented with drugs myself. It has never really been my scene, but I would take something at a party if given the opportunity. I dated guys off and on who treated me like crap, though, that is for sure. For some reason, I just thought that was how relationships were supposed to be. I went through a few abusive relationships growing up, and one of them was by far the worst. I met a guy at the age of 20. At first, he treated me how every girl wanted to be treated. He would send me the most beautiful bouquet of flowers, talk to me like I was the most beautiful girl in the room. He would show me off to his friends like I was amazing. This kept happening for 4 months, but what I didn't realize is that he was baiting me. Once he hooked me and knew I didn't want to leave because he loved me, he started breaking me down. At first, the physical abuse was few and far between. It would happen every few months whenever he was drunk. The emotional abuse started slowly creeping in and hit like wildfire after we were married. We were together for 4 years, and the last year was the only year we were married. That was the absolute worst year of my life. I felt like I was trapped and I couldn't get out of a cage. I was broken down so badly. I was scared to make a decision about anything or even talk. People ask me to this day even, why did you stay? When someone tells you every single day that you aren't good enough, then you actually believe it. When someone looks at you in disgust, when you're trying to be romantic with them, you start believing you look disgusting. At the age of 24, the last 6 months before I escaped, he would come home every day and he would tell me that I should kill myself because no one cared about me. The day I finally reached out for help was the day he came home from work at 8 p.m. after getting drunk at his job. He looked at me and said, "You are so disgusting and worthless. Go drive in front of a car and go kill yourself. How can you even look at yourself in the mirror?" He walked back out the door and went back to his bar and got drunk. I seriously thought about ending my life that day. I thought the world didn't need me and that I wasn't worth being alive anymore. That was one of the big moments in my relationship with him that I knew I needed to leave somehow, and I knew I needed to figure a way out. At 26 marked a year of my divorce from this toxic, abusive alcoholic. I went from a big house to being alone in my studio apartment at 3 Rivers in Fort Wayne. A kitchen, a bedroom, and a living room all wrapped into one. To be honest, I loved it for a while, but I wasn't sure where my life was going. A lot of my friends already married, graduated from college with amazing careers. I left my great career in the insurance world due to so much stress from my previous husband and the divorce I went through. Not to mention his relatives worked there and a lot of people had no idea of the abuse. So I looked like the crazy one. I wasn't too close to any of my family members at this time. I actually felt embarrassed at where I was in life, so I would stay away. I was 26 years old and have already lived an adventurous life. A world full of nightclubs, bars, daily drinking with friends. There was this one guy though. Let's go way back to my high school years. I started dating a guy in high school that seemed to take all of my problems away whenever we were together. He would come and go out of my life, but act like he was a knight in shining armor every single time, telling me I was the one for him. I dated him over the course of 12 years. I dated him at 15, 17, 19, 25 right after my divorce, and then dated him one last time at 26 to see if we could make it work. He would always have me chasing him though, and I ate it up like cake. I broke it off with him after I found out he got a girl pregnant in Fort Wayne and didn't want to take care of the child. He already had 2 kids, so it seemed unfair for his 3rd child not to know her father. It's like everything I had ever felt for him was gone for that one decision. It broke my heart that he turned out like that. I pictured him and I being together and having a great life together, but him telling me that one decision made me realize he was just another bad boy that I dated. 12 years of memories crushed. I broke it off with him, and I finally wanted to move on with my life. My relationship with God vanished for a few years. I was actually angry at him. I was angry at the hits I took from my ex-husband. I was broke. I was making one bad decision after another. I was alone, and I felt like I was defeated. My self-esteem was broken from all of the bad relationships I put myself in. The world swallowed me whole, and I couldn't get back up. My sister wanted me to move to New York City and live with her for a year, but it just didn't feel right to me. I would have had the opportunity of a lifetime to live in one of the most amazing cities, but something was tugging at me, and something made it feel like it wasn't right. I was angry for that decision not even feeling right. I was just angry, period. One night, laying in my bed, in the dark with just the TV on, I prayed for the first time in years. I asked God to give me a sign on what I should do with my life. Do I move to New York or do I stay in Indiana? I wasn't really sure what to do, and I finally wanted his help. 4 days passed since I prayed. It was April of 2014. I was working a shift at Olive Garden in Fort Wayne, and I was at the drink station pouring drinks whenever my chest started to throb. It kept bothering me and would come and go off and on. I literally stopped and could hear my heart pounding inside of my ears. Crap, am I pregnant? After work, I went to Walmart and got a pregnancy test. I remember looking at a girl in high school and her boyfriend picking one out, and literally in my mind, I laughed thinking to myself, that would suck. I thought to myself, I'll go home, pee on this stick, and go out to the deck for a few drinks after and everything will be fine. I went home and walked into the bathroom, and immediately the results had shown up pregnant. Those 2 lines were the clearest 2 lines you could ever see. I threw myself on my bed and I sobbed. I couldn't believe it. How after all of these years and all of the brokenness and hurt in my life, how could this happen to me? The people I talked to that day, most of them told me I should get an abortion. There were a few that told me whatever I decided, they would stand behind me, but the ones that were for abortion kept beating it into my mind. Here I am with low self-esteem already, not thinking I could do anything right in life, and I keep being a mess up, and so many are trying to basically tell me I messed up again by stating I should abort this child. One of the individuals that was extremely for abortion and wouldn't stop talking to me about it looked up a place in Fort Wayne called the Women's Center. It talks about all of the different ways you can handle your pregnancy. She told me to go there and talk about my options, but little did we both know it was a pro-life clinic. In the meantime, during all of this, I contacted my ex-boyfriend. Do you remember the one that promised me if we had a child together that he wasn't going to abandon me like he did the girl from Fort Wayne? The one I had countless memories with for 12 years? Sure enough, whenever I told him I may be pregnant, he insisted that we go get an abortion. He drove immediately to my apartment, and I sat in his truck. His exact words to me, "I will drive you down to Indy, we will go get this done, and then go out for ice cream like it never happened." I was in shock just staring at him. I never stuck up for myself with this guy. He was always that guy who would do anything for. Little did I know God was working through me, though. I told him I would think about things and let him know. In my heart, I wanted to keep the baby, but felt like I would make so many angry for wanting to keep it. My self-confidence was too low to stick up for myself at this time. I walked into the women's center as scared as can be, and I seen a picture of Jesus on the wall, and I remember being so angry at him. Here I am in this position, and I kept blaming him. They took me back to the nurse, and she told me to go pee on a stick, and I did. She confirmed the pregnancy and took me back for an ultrasound. When we looked at the monitor, you couldn't see anything. It was blank, pitch black. She looked at me and said, "I have a feeling you're having a miscarriage. Come back Friday to confirm it." I didn't know it at the time, but this was another sign that God had given me. I informed the 4 to 5 people that I had called earlier, letting them know it was a false alarm and that I was having a miscarriage. It got everyone to back off and not put any more opinions in my ear. The world went quiet for me. I was able to think and listen to myself and listen to God. When Friday came, the clinic in Fort Wayne that I went to the first time was actually closed that day, so I had to go to a different one. The nurse took me into the exam room and I laid on the table so the nurse could start the ultrasound. I could see this red and blue on the screen and was confused. I asked her what it was and she explained it to me. There's a little heart pumping red and blue. That is the blood going in and coming out. I just stared at that screen and couldn't believe it. I looked at her in shock. "You mean that's the baby?" She replied, "Yes, you haven't seen it already?" My eyes were huge at this point, just staring at the screen. I looked at her and said, "No, I have not." She looked directly into my eyes, and you could tell that she knew. I felt she could see the worry in my eyes, wondering to myself if I was strong enough. She looked right at me without hesitation, and she said to me, "You can do this." Do you realize how much that meant to me? I was put down so much in my life with bad relationships and felt like so many figured I was going to do something else bad or mess something else up. And here this nurse looked at me like I was Wonder Woman. I was the strongest woman on earth. Those words meant the world to me. Everything after that moment was a blur. She kept talking and talking, but I couldn't hear anything she was saying. That day, that very moment, I stared at that little heart, and that was the moment I knew I was going to be a mother and not one person was going to tell me different. I received so much backlash. The guy that I dated for 12 years off and on, he sent me an email begging me to abort my child. I was so strong at this point, and it was like a switch turned on. I became so protective, and I told him I was keeping this baby no matter what. He then let me know he didn't want to be in our lives. He was already dating someone new, but for some reason, I still felt at peace and okay with his decision. Because of the Women's Center and the help I received, I became a better person in life. These women were angels. The picture of Jesus on that wall, it was actually a sign. The talk I had with God 4 days before I took my test was a sign. The nurse who gave me a glimmer of hope was a sign. God was working on me and never left me that entire time. I was just closed off to his help until I prayed for the first time again. I learned while I was single and pregnant to love myself again, to rebuild my faith, and to love my unborn child. While pregnant, I began to lean on positive people. I promised myself I would never date a man who wasn't deserving of my love ever again, because I wanted to set an example for my son on how to treat women, and I wanted to find someone deserving of us. I found God again, and I talked to him quite a bit on what to do. I told the biological father that if he didn't want to be in my son's life, it was okay. I could make it on my own, and that is what I did. The last time he seen Preston was May of 2015, when Preston was 5 months old. He demanded a paternity test, and we took a home kit test, which came back to him being the biological father. I asked him for his medical records, his ancestry, and we agreed on a small financial settlement to help me get by the first year of Preston's life. I looked him in the eyes and specifically asked that if I ever meet a man that is worthy of Preston's love, that he would sign off and Preston could have a real father. He agreed to this, no questions asked. I never heard from him again, never took him to court. I heard from him though one last time. After I had my son, I found out he had a lot of medical issues and extreme food allergies. It was one of the issues. When he was a baby, he wouldn't let anyone hold him but me. For hours and hours I was up with him. We couldn't figure out what was wrong with him until finally a gastroenterologist explained he had a dairy and soy intolerance. He would only sleep for an hour, maybe two, and wake up screaming. He refused to take the special formula that they wanted to give him, so I had to rely strictly on breastfeeding. While this was happening, I would have various guys surprisingly show up to my parents' house to bring gifts or to hang out. They were all guys from my past or guys I hung out with at the bar. I never felt comfortable with any of them around Preston. He would cry at any time someone would try and hold him, whether it was family or friends. My parents were exhausted helping me. It was around-the-clock care on holding him and comforting him. I still can't believe how much they helped me when I lived under their roof. And Mom and Dad, I can't thank you enough. I never knew this, but my dad told me recently that he laid in bed one night with tears in his eyes and prayed that I would meet someone worthy of Preston. And I didn't know if he did this for me or due to his lack of sleep since he had a screaming grandbaby in the house. But a week later, I got asked out on a date by someone who I never would have expected. One of the nicest guys that graduated in my high school class. A shy and quiet, but such a sweet guy. This guy named Mihm took me out on our first date. He brought me flowers and opened the car door for me. We were both incredibly nervous. On our date, Paul asked what church I belonged to, and for Pete's sakes, I've never been asked that question on a date. So that tells you the type of guys I dated. But at the time, I didn't have a church. He told me he went to Fellowship Missionary Church, which is the same church a girlfriend Liz of mine kept speaking to me about and prayed about Preston and I going with her. I felt like it was a sign and that I had finally found a Christian man. Paul and I never even kissed until our fourth date because that night I realized Preston chose his father. I invited Paul over to cook him a meal, not knowing how he ate, which later I found out he ate bratwurst and potatoes for 2 years straight. So he was a very simple man. But I was so nervous, I tried making him this gourmet miraculous meal I looked up on the internet. I made him rack of lamb and this special rice that tasted like crap. He sucked the rice down, telling me it was good, and we laughed because I knew he thought it tasted awful. We watched The Hunger Games that night, but while the movie was playing, without me even saying anything, he got down on the floor to play with Preston, and that was the first time I had seen Preston laugh with someone else other than me or my parents. My eyes lit up, and so did Preston's. And Paul even rocked Preston to sleep, and he didn't cry at all. Paul, you are a true Christian man. I never knew that a man could love me unconditionally and look at my past as a journey. You make me laugh every single day. Paul, you and Preston have such a beautiful bond. Preston is outside with my husband Paul every opportunity he can get. Preston takes Paul's tools and helps Paul out when fixing his truck that breaks down from time to time, or his mower that may need spruced up. Paul, you are the perfect example of what a father should be, and Preston picked you the night that you laughed together on my parents' living room floor. I love you so much. I never let that man go, and this January we will be celebrating our 2nd wedding anniversary. The love, encouragement, and support that I got from the Women's Center started a ripple effect. I wouldn't have what I have now if I didn't walk into the Pregnancy Center April of 2014. I wouldn't have the constant laughs and snuggles from both of my children, a husband who makes sure he kisses me first thing in the morning and every night before bed, who jokes with me and wipes my tears or calms me down if I'm having a rough day. I wouldn't have a son named Preston who dances with me anytime music plays, and we break out into some awesome dance moves together and then laugh continuously. If I wouldn't have walked into that clinic that day, I wouldn't have a son who looks at me like I'm the most important person to him and who has 100% trust in me every day to help him make the best decisions in life. If I didn't walk into that pregnancy center, I wouldn't have a second son named Rudy by the man that Preston picked to be his father. I also wouldn't be close to my family members and relatives and friends. I now have a great relationship with all of them, and I am so thankful. Remember me telling you that I would hear from the biological father one last time? It was on May 26th of 2017, the day my husband Paul adopted Preston. He kept his promise and sent the paper into our adoption lawyer. It was signed off for Paul to be Preston's father. I'm not even angry at him. I honestly am thankful for Preston's nice story, and I wish him the best in life with his family that he has now. Sometimes people can be mixed up in life, and I know because I was there before. I have nothing but forgiveness in my heart for him, and I hope he is an amazing father to the children that do call him Dad now. I wake up every morning knowing that what I have is a gift. I opened my heart to God and put my life in his hands. When you find your faith again, the world goes from dark to beautiful. I wouldn't have any of this if it wasn't for the help that I received. This is why the Hope Clinic is so important to the lives of so many women. Every single one of you in this audience knows of someone who had an unplanned pregnancy. Instead of a woman feeling broken down or that having a baby is a mistake, by walking into the doors of the Hope Clinic, she will walk out knowing that this is the path God wanted her to have. This is the journey she is supposed to take. The Hope Clinic gives exactly what its name describes, and that is hope. Because of places like this, we all know there's at least one less woman out there that feels defeated with life because she made a horrible mistake, and that one less woman is me. My story is not a train wreck. My story is not a tragedy. My story is a story of triumph and victory, and it is still being written. Thank you.